In her previous life, Ming-shu had married the crown prince exactly as she had wished. He then spent half a lifetime keeping her at arm's length. Only at the very end did she learn that another woman had lived in his heart all along. When she woke again at the imperial bride selection banquet, the first thing she did was push the crown prince toward me. What she never expected was that I did not want the man she had cast aside either. We are taught to eagerly reach for heaven, sent blessings, never asking if they are actually gilded cages in disguise. Watch carefully as a desperate soul tries to rewrite her tragic fate by secretly passing a poisoned chalice to a stranger, only for that stranger to simply refuse the drink. Let us see what happens when the ultimate prize is tossed into the river without a second glance. Now, the story begins. The Empress announced that whoever found the famed Yaohuang peony would be the most blessed young lady in the garden that day. Every noble maiden's eyes lit up. Mine did not. I had only arrived in the capital from Jiangyan with my father a few days earlier. I could barely find my way through the palace grounds. I certainly had no idea how a single flower had somehow become tangled up with the position of crown princess. Then Liu Lingyi tugged secretly at my sleeves. "Stop sitting there." She lowered her voice, though her eyes flicked toward the Empress. "Her Majesty did not invite us here merely to admire flowers. She is choosing a daughter-in-law." I nearly sloshed tea over my hand. By the time I looked up again, half the seats were empty. The same girls who had been sitting with perfect grace moments ago had somehow scattered through the garden. From a distance, every one of them still walked with measured elegance. Their eyes, however, looked ready to pry open every crack in every rockery. I could not help asking, surely she does not truly mean whoever finds it will be chosen? Lingyi gave me a look that suggested she was beginning to wonder whether girls from Jiangyan were all this painfully literal. Of course not. Her Majesty has favored Lady Xia for years. I followed her gaze. Ming-shu sat not far away in a moon-white gown, its collar edged with the faintest thread of silver. She was the legitimate daughter of the Xi family, and widely praised as the foremost young lady of the capital. I had heard that she and Crown Prince Xiao Chenggang had known each other for years. Their families had long shared an understanding. All that remained was an imperial decree, so this flower hunt was likely nothing more than a performance staged for the whole garden to witness. At once, I relaxed. If the matter had nothing to do with me, then I only needed to make a polite show of taking part. I wandered half a circuit with the others, admired the crabapple blossoms, brushed my fingers over a magnolia, and quietly memorized which path led back to the banquet. I had not gone far when a flash of brilliant yellow appeared beneath the flower stand behind Ming-shu. "Yao Huang!" Mi's steps stopped. Ming-shu saw it too. Our eyes met. The color drained from her face. Before I could understand why, she lowered her gaze and shifted one embroidered shoe backward. A light flick. The peony that had half the garden straining their eyes rolled across the stone pavement. Once, twice. Then it came to rest beneath my table. I said nothing. A spring breeze passed through the flowering branches, stirring the edge of the canopy. I looked at the peony. Then I looked at Ming-shu. She had already turned her face aside as though nothing had happened. Only the fist hidden in her sleeve betrayed how tightly she was holding herself together. The Empress favored her. The Crown Prince had known her for years, and the Yaohuang had just happened to be hidden behind her seat. With such a splendid marriage all but placed in her hands, why did she not want it? More importantly, why did she insist on kicking it to me? I lowered my gaze slowly. The Yaohuang lay beneath the table in perfect innocence, its petals bright and magnificent. It did not look remotely dangerous. But my mother had always said that when a meat pie falls from heaven for no reason, do not open your mouth too quickly. First, look up and see whether someone is dangling it from a hook. I glanced at Ming-shu again. She happened to be looking back. This time, there was unmistakable apology in her eyes. A chill ran straight down my back. Wonderful. Even the person giving me this gift looked guilty. Then I wanted the flower even less. I deliberately dropped my handkerchief. When I bent to retrieve it, my wide sleeve fell over the Yao Huang and covered it completely. A heartbeat later, the flower was inside my sleeve. The handkerchief was back in my hand. I sat upright again and lifted my tea as though nothing had happened. I had already made my decision. The moment I left the palace, I would find a river. The flower would go into it. As for today's glorious marriage prospect, anyone who wanted it could have it. It would not be me. Before long, the other young ladies returned one after another. Has the Yao Huang found its mistress? Silence settled over the banquet. No one answered. The Empress's smile thinned, and her gaze naturally shifted to Shi Mingshu. Mingshu, you did not find it either? Mingshu rose and bowed with faultless propriety. Your Majesty, this subject was not so fortunate. One of the Empress's brows moved. The senior palace matron behind her could not restrain herself. This old servant clearly remembers seeing a flash of yellow behind Lady Shi's seat. The garden grew even quieter. I lowered my head and drank my tea. The Yao Huang pressed against my wrist inside my sleeve, making its presence known with remarkable enthusiasm. The matron went around Mingshu's seat and searched. Naturally, she found nothing. At last, the Empress's expression darkened, and at that exact moment, Mingshu looked at me. A dreadful feeling stirred in my chest. Then she spoke softly. I believe I saw Lady Shen bend down to pick something up just now. My hand froze around my teacup, she added. Perhaps I was mistaken. I raised my eyes to her. She would not meet them. Very slowly, I drew one breath through my nose. The capital's celebrated First Lady looked like a painting and caused trouble like a seasoned courtier. Every gaze in the garden turned to me. The Empress asked, "Whose daughter are you?" I had no choice but to stand. My father is Shen Tingzhao, Your Majesty. He was recently summoned to the capital by imperial command. The Empress's expression changed slightly. My father held a third-rank office. He had just resolved a long festering case in Jiangnan and currently enjoyed the Emperor's favor. Our family could not compare with the Xi's, but neither were we insignificant. The Empress's face softened again. So you are Minister Shen's daughter. If you found the flower, why did you not speak? I had just opened my mouth when a man's voice came from beyond the flower corridor. Mother. Everyone rose to bow. I lowered my eyes as well. Crown Prince Xiao Chenggung had arrived late, dressed in dark blue-black brocade. He carried himself with cultivated gentleness, and his features were undeniably handsome. Looking at him, I could understand why a garden full of noble girls had been willing to wear out their feet for one peony. Then he walked straight toward me. Lady Shen. I looked up. There was a flash of unmistakable delight in his eyes. So, it truly was you. For a moment, I had no idea what he meant. He lowered his voice. On our journey back to the capital before the new year, we met with danger. You rendered aid. We have been searching for you ever since. On our own journey north, our party had found an injured young man beside the post road. His face had been smeared with mud and blood, and he had clearly been concealing his identity. I had never seen his features properly. I had merely ordered our guards to help him into the carriage, while our traveling physician tended his wounds. At the nearest relay station, Father had feared being drawn into needless trouble, so we left medicine and silver behind and continued on our way. I had not expected the stranger to be the Crown Prince. Still less had I expected the matter to mean far more to him than it had to me. You saved our life that day, and today the Yao Huang has chosen its mistress. He looked at me with a warmth that bordered on certainty. It seems heaven itself has spoken. The flower hidden in my sleeve suddenly felt even hotter. Before I could answer, he took a freshly cut peony from a palace attendant. Since Mother says the flower signifies fate, then allow us to make the choice ourselves. The Empress glanced at Shi Mingshu, plainly displeased, but the Crown Prince had already stopped before me. We would give this flower to you. He lifted his hand as though intending to place it in my hair. The weight of the whole garden's attention pressed down on us. Some looked envious. some astonished. Others were waiting for me to melt with gratitude. Instead, I took one instinctive step backward. Xiao Chengkung's hand stopped in midair. I bent my knees in a formal curtsy. Your Highness honors me beyond measure, but I dare not accept. His brows drew together. I continued. I am already promised in marriage. This time, it was not only the crown prince who went still. Even the empress looked startled. My father and the Gu family had been close for many years. The two households had long intended a marriage between us. Before Gu Yongxiao left for the frontier, our elders had already exchanged betrothal tokens. We were merely waiting for his return to complete the formal rites. In Jiangyan, this was hardly a secret. In the capital, no one knew. Xiao Chengyang was silent for a moment. The Gu family? Yes, Your Highness. Gu Yongxiao. Yes. So he had investigated me. He even knew the name. Until that moment, I had found the whole matter merely troublesome. Suddenly, something colder and harder to name crept beneath my skin. We had barely spoken to each other. Yet, he knew my family, my movements, even Gu Yongxiao. Xiao Chenggang studied me for a long while, then smiled faintly. If the 6 rites have not yet been completed, then nothing is settled. I did not answer. He likely believed I understood the weight of those words. If the crown prince offered marriage to a minister's daughter, she was expected to be grateful. Whatever promise she had made before was apparently a small thing by comparison. I lowered my gaze and bowed. A marriage document may be written late, Your Highness. One's word cannot be honored late. My family has given its promise to the Gu family. I will not break faith. At last, the smile faded from Xiao Chenggang's face. The empress stepped in quickly and smoothed over the awkward silence. Then she turned back to Mingshu. And you? Ji Mingshu rose. I thought she would at least take the escape the empress had offered her. Instead, she lifted her head. Her voice was quiet, but every word carried clearly across the garden. This subject does not wish to marry into the Eastern Palace either. It felt as though even the wind stopped. I snapped my gaze toward her. Xiao Chengkung turned as well. Mingshu was deathly pale. Her fingers dug into her palm, yet she did not take the words back. His Highness and I have known each other for many years. There is old affection between our families, but no love between a man and a woman. The Empress's expression turned to ice. Mingshu, do you understand what you are saying? I do. She knelt slowly. Because I understand. I dare not ruin His Highness's life, nor my own. Watching her back, I suddenly felt the Yao Huang in my sleeve grow heavier. So she did not think this was a poor marriage. She was afraid of it. So afraid that she would rather risk offending the Empress than accept it. The only unreasonable part was that when she shoved the marriage away, she had chosen me as the person to catch it. The flower banquet ended in haste. I had barely reached the palace gates when someone called behind me. Lady Shen. I stopped. Ji Mingshu stood below the stone steps, paler than she had been inside. After hesitating for a long while, she asked, "May I speak with you in private?" I had little desire to oblige her, but the Yao Huang still hidden in my sleeve reminded me that some accounts were best settled face to face. I had my driver stop in a quiet place and invited her into my carriage. The curtain fell, and the noise of the street receded at once. I took the Yao Huang from my sleeve and laid it on the small table between us. After being smothered in silk for so long, the blossom had begun to wilt. Mingshu's lashes trembled sharply when she saw it. "So you did pick it up." "I did not pick it up. You kicked it at me." Her lips parted. I spoke first. "Why?" She lowered her head. "The crown prince likes you, and you once saved him. He searched for you for a long time." Her voice grew softer with every word. "If he marries the woman he truly likes, perhaps he will live more happily." I stared at her. What has his happiness to do with me? Her head flew up. I pointed at the flower on the table. "Lady Shi, if you do not want a marriage, refuse it. Throw it away. Let it rot in the dust if you please. But you cannot decide you do not want it, and then stuff it into someone else's hands." The last trace of color left her face. I never meant to harm you. I know. She froze. I could see that much. If she had truly wished me harm, she would not have looked guilty all afternoon, nor would she have chased me down outside the palace. But lack of malice did not turn a wrong choice into a right one. I leaned back against the cushions. You simply never stopped to wonder whether I wanted it. For a long time, the carriage was silent. Mingshu's hands tightened slowly in her lap. I am sorry. I did not rush to forgive her. After a while, she asked, Are you truly not tempted at all? By what? Being crown princess. I considered it. It does sound very grand. Mingshu gave a bitter little smile. I added, But today was the first time I ever saw the crown prince clearly. Whether he likes me is his affair. Whether I like him is mine. Her eyes reddened at once. Somehow half my anger drained away. It was as though she had been holding something inside for far too long. At last she whispered, Lady Shen, I once had a very long dream. I assumed she was trying a different excuse. But when she raised her eyes, I did not see shame in them. I saw a weariness that made my chest tighten. In that dream, I married Xiao Chengyang. Everyone said I had received everything I ever wanted. I believed them. She spoke slowly. In that other life, the Yao Huang had fallen into her hands, and the Empress had used it to seal the match. Mingshu had loved Xiao Chengang for years. She had believed marrying him would be the happiest ending fate could give her. Instead, after the wedding, he remained distant. Later, when he learned that someone else had been the girl who saved him on the road, he decided Mingshu had occupied a place that should have belonged to another woman. He did not cast her aside. He did not openly mistreat her. He simply made certain that everyone in the Eastern Palace knew the crown prince did not love his crown princess. Sometimes endless coldness cuts deeper than open cruelty. She would be halfway through a sentence and he would turn away. When she fell ill, he sent the imperial physicians but never crossed her threshold himself. At palace banquets, he seated her beside him, then turned to ask someone else what flowers a young lady from Jiangnan might prefer. Her hurt became resentment. Her resentment became exhaustion. In the end, she no longer even wanted to fight for his attention. When Xiao Chenggang ascended the throne, she became empress. She stood higher than almost any woman in the realm. And she lived in silence. The palace around her glittered with gold, yet it felt as though every door and every window had been locked from the outside. Later, I grew sicker and sicker, she said, so softly I nearly missed it. When I opened my eyes again, it was 1 month before today's flower banquet. I said nothing. If anyone else had told me such a tale, I probably would have wondered whether the fever had never truly left her. But the way she looked at the Yao Huang made every jest die in my throat. That was not the frightened look of someone waking from a bad dream. It was the gaze of a person who had walked to the very end of a road and then been dragged, against all reason, back to its beginning. Mingshu closed her eyes for a moment. When I woke, I had only one thought. I could not marry him again. She drew a breath. But in that life, Xiao Cheng spent years searching for you. I thought that if I gave him the woman he truly wanted from the very beginning, everything would return to the place it should have occupied. At last I understood. She had not knowingly tried to throw me into a pit. She still believed the tragedy of her first life had happened because she herself had stood in the wrong place. I pushed the Yao Huang across the table toward her. Lady Shi. She looked up. You are trying to mend his fate, not your own. She stared at me. I did not know where the words had come from. After saying them, I fell silent myself. Only after a long moment did I continue. You were unhappy, so you decided it was because you married him. But have you ever considered that perhaps the problem was never you? And perhaps it was never me either. Her breathing faltered. I did not press further. Some truths can be explained 100 times by another person and still remain useless until you see them yourself. The carriage stopped beside a river. I lifted the curtain. Come down! Mingshu followed me, bewildered. The spring water ran high, its surface broken into shards of gold by the setting sun. I held the Yao Huang in my hand. She stared at me. "What are you doing?" "Disposing of evidence." For a moment she was too startled to answer. I opened my fingers. The peony dropped into the river, spun once, and was quickly carried away. Mingshu watched that bright scrap of yellow drift farther and farther downstream. Then tears slipped down her face. She cried without a sound. I stood beside her for a while before pulling a handkerchief from my sleeve and offering it over. "I only have the one. If you soak it through today, you owe me another." To my surprise, she laughed. Tears still clung to her lashes. "I will give you 10. "No need," I said. "Embroidery is hard on the eyes." She lowered her head and clutched the handkerchief. After a long while, she whispered, "Shen Jiwei, I am sorry." This time she did not call me Lady Shen, so I stopped standing on ceremony too. "Very well." She blinked. "What?" "I forgive half of it for now. The other half depends on how you behave from here on." She truly smiled then. When I returned home, I told father everything that had happened in the palace. He listened in silence, and then asked the first question that occurred to him. "Which river did you throw the flower into?" I told him. He stroked his beard and nodded. "Fast current. No one will fish it back out." I stared at him. Truly, that was my father. His priorities had never once resembled anyone else's. I asked, "Did I cause trouble for the family today?" Father set aside the official papers in his hand. "If the price of sparing this family inconvenience is your entire life, then what exactly have I spent all these years serving at court for?" My nose stung suddenly. Then he added, "Still, if the crown prince investigated the Giyu family before even speaking properly with you, do not go out with only one maid from now on. The capital is not Jiangnan. There are more rules here, and more winding hearts." I nodded. Over the next several days, the Eastern Palace sent gift after gift: jade, silk, and antique chin. Even a box of rare southern pearls said to be the last of their kind in the imperial stores. I did not open a single one. Father sent every gift back exactly as it had arrived. By the fourth return, the chief steward of the Eastern Palace looked as though his face had begun to set into stone. I was helpless to explain it any more clearly. I had already said no Xiao Chengkung. However, seemed convinced I was merely afraid of offending the Empress or the Xia family. A few days later, I went to a temple outside the city to burn incense. I bowed 3 times before the Buddha with complete sincerity. May Mother arrive safely in the... May Father's career remain steady. May Guying Shao return from the frontier unharmed. After thinking for a moment, I added one more request. And if heaven had any mercy left to spare, may I stop running into the crown prince. The incense stick had not even burned halfway down when I found Xiao Chenggung standing in the peach grove behind the temple. I stopped where I was and looked up at the sky. Apparently, the Buddha had decided I had asked for too much, and chosen the last request to ignore. Xiao Chenggung walked toward me. "Zhe Wei." My brow twitched. "Your Highness should continue to call me Lady Shen. Must there be such distance between us? There must." He paused, plainly unprepared for the speed of my answer. Peach petals drifted in the wind and settled on his shoulder. In another setting, the scene might have belonged in a romantic tale. I only wanted to take the other path. He stepped sideways and blocked the stone trail. "You returned every gift we sent." I did. Because of Gu Yunxiao. Because I did not want them. At last, displeasure sharpened his eyes. "We have already made our position clear to Mother. We will not marry Xi Mingshu. You need not fear her." Weariness washed over me. How many times had I spoken, and why did he hear anything but the one thing I was actually saying? I did not want him. "Your Highness." I met his eyes. "Whether Lady Xia wishes to marry you is her affair. Whether Guyun Shao is in the capital is another matter entirely. I refuse because I refuse. Nothing more." The last warmth left Xiao Chenggung's face. "Do you understand what you are turning down?" "I do. The position of crown princess." "I have not forgotten." He seemed about to say more when hoofbeats suddenly thundered from behind him. Fast they swept from the temple gate all the way to the foot of the stone steps. My heart gave one hard leap. Then a familiar voice cut through the peach trees. Shen Jiwei! I turned. Guyun Shao was still dressed for the road. Dust clung to his shoulders, and the years at the frontier had sharpened his features. Yet the instant he saw me, his whole face brightened. He crossed the distance in a few long strides and looked me over from head to toe before saying anything else. Are you all right? I nodded. Only then did he turn to Xiao Changgung. After the briefest pause, he bowed. This subject, Guyun Shao, greets your highness, the crown prince. Xiao Changgung stared at him. So you are Guyun Shao? I am. Standing between them, I suddenly remembered what the crown prince had said at the banquet. Until the 6 rites are complete, nothing is settled. So I took one deliberate step toward Guyun Shao. Your highness asked about my betrothal before, did you not? I lifted my chin. Now the man himself has returned. Guyun Shao went visibly rigid. He was still stunned when we descended the mountain and climbed into the carriage. Sitting opposite me, he looked out the window, then at me, then back at the window. At last he could bear it no longer. Betrothal. That betrothal you just mentioned is with me? Who else would it be? His ears slowly turned red. Then, just as quickly, his confidence collapsed. Were you only using me as a shield against the crown prince? I stared at him. After years at the frontier, his blade had apparently grown sharper, while this particular bit of courage had remained exactly where I left it. Guyun Shao? Yes? Before you left for war, our families exchanged tokens. You have not forgotten, have you? He blinked. I drew an old jade clasp from my sleeve. His mother had placed it in my hand herself. Guyun Shao stared at the clasp, and light slowly gathered in his eyes. Then you! Then I what? His throat moved. For all his battlefield courage, he suddenly did not dare ask. I turned deliberately toward the window. A moment later, I heard a very quiet laugh from across the carriage. Not long after that, he could no longer suppress it at all. We had barely entered the city before he began planning when to summon his parents to the capital, when to complete the formal proposal and name exchange rites, and whether simply following the old agreement was dignified enough. We ought to ask His Majesty for an imperial marriage decree as well. I turned back. Do you think imperial decrees grow by the roadside like cabbages? Guyun Shao replied with a perfectly straight face, then I shall earn more merit. I laughed despite myself. Dusk gathered beyond the carriage window. The gates of the capital rose ahead of us. For the first time since arriving, the city did not feel quite so strange. 3 days after Guyun Shao returned, the palace held a banquet to welcome the soldiers from the northwestern frontier. I had thought I could simply sit through the evening quietly. I was wrong. From the moment I entered the hall, eyes followed me from every direction. News of the flower banquet had already spread. In the capital, the fastest tongue was not attached to any person. It belonged to the wind. Let it cross a single street, and a story would grow 3 new layers before reaching the other end. Some said I did not know how to appreciate favor. Some said Shi Mingshu and I must have heard secret rumors that the crown prince was about to be deposed, which was why we had rejected him one after the other. Others said I had thrown away a crown prince for a frontier general, because the damp air of Jiangyan had soaked straight through my skull. After listening for half the day, I had to admit the last version showed the most imagination. I had only just taken my seat when a palace maid passed with a tray of tea, slipped, and sent the entire cup splashing toward me. I had no time to dodge. One shoulder of my gown was soaked. The maid went white and dropped to her knees. Lady Shen, forgive this servant. Please allow me to take you to a side hall to change. I looked down at my skirt. What an extraordinarily well-aimed fall. In a hall full of people, the tea had recognized only me. I will go with her. Zi Mingshu had appeared beside me without my noticing. The maid faltered. Lady Shi, this. Mingshu smiled mildly. Why, am I forbidden from entering the dressing chamber? The maid did not dare object again. We went together to the side hall. Nothing happened. Only after I had changed, and we stepped back outside, did Mingshu lower her voice. In my first life, someone used a similar trick at a palace banquet. And then, they lured a person somewhere she should not have been, then arranged for someone else to arrive at precisely the wrong moment. I understood. Mingshu looked at me. It may not have been meant for you, but caution costs little. I nodded. Since the day by the river, she had truly stopped making choices for me. She warned me when she knew something. Then she let me decide what to do with the warning. I liked that very much. Not long after we returned to the banquet, the generals entered. Gu Yongxiao walked near the front in silver armor, his back straight and his bearing severe. I was so used to the man who smiled after 2 sentences in private that seeing him like this made him almost unfamiliar. As though sensing my gaze, he looked up. His eyes immediately curved with a smile. There he was, still Gu Yongxiao. The emperor was in excellent spirits that evening. After several rounds of wine, he called Gu Yongxiao by name. Minister Gu, you held the northwestern pass and protected the grain route. Tell us, what reward do you desire? Gu Yongxiao stepped forward and knelt. This subject has one private wish. My heartbeat quickened. He turned his head slightly. Across the crowded hall, his gaze found me without hesitation. The Gu and Shen families pledged our marriage years ago, and that promise has never changed. This subject begs your majesty to exchange the merit earned in this campaign for one imperial decree of marriage. The entire hall fell silent. Somewhere not far away, a wine cup struck the table with a small, sharp sound. I did not need to look to know whose hand had made it. The emperor stared for a moment, then burst out laughing. We thought you would ask for soldiers or horses. It turns out you came before us to ask for a wife. Gu Yongxiao's ears reddened, but he remained kneeling straight-backed. This subject asks for nothing else. The emperor looked toward father. Minister Shen, what say you? Father rose and bowed. The young people care for one another. As her father, this subject would naturally be glad to see their wish fulfilled. And what says the Shen girl herself? Every eye turned to me. I stood. Across the lamps, Gu Yongxiao was looking at me too. A moment ago, he had worn the expression of a man who could hold up the sky if it fell. Now his hand had quietly clenched at his side. I almost laughed. This subject is willing. 4 words. His shoulders loosened all at once. The emperor laughed even more heartily. Good, then we shall play matchmaker today. And with that, the imperial decree was settled. Mingshu sat beside me and gently brushed her fingers against my hand. I looked at her. She did not say congratulations. She only smiled. I smiled back. After the banquet, Gu Yongxiao caught up with me outside the palace gate. He clearly wanted to take my hand, but there were too many people around, so he clasped both hands behind his back and walked beside me instead. When His Majesty asked you just now, I nearly forgot how to breathe. Did you not say it would be all right if I refused? I did. He was painfully honest, but hearing you say yes still made me want to be happy for a while. You have been happy the entire walk. Then I shall be happy a little longer. I ignored him. My mouth, unfortunately, refused to stop smiling. Aunt's news of the imperial marriage decree spread. The wind in the capital changed direction exactly as expected. The same girls who had called my judgment poor only days earlier now praised Gu Yongxiao as a young man of exceptional promise. When Liu Lingyi heard, she laughed so hard she slapped the table. See, they did not suddenly fall in love with General Gu. They merely found an explanation that lets them pretend they have not lost to you. I bit into a plum cake. Let them talk. I had more pressing concerns. Mother would soon arrive in the capital, and Gu Yongxiao's parents were coming as well. After discussing it, the 2 families decided to begin the formal betrothal rites at once. I assumed Mingshu would finally be able to breathe more easily too. Then, on the morning the results of the metropolitan examination were posted, she arrived at my house before breakfast. Come with me to see the rankings. I stared at her. Since When are you so fascinated by the civil examinations? She avoided my eyes. Just come. I knew that expression far too well. She was hiding something. We took a private room in a tea house overlooking the main street. Below us, the crowd packed the road shoulder to shoulder. Mingshu barely glanced at the posted rankings. Instead, she kept staring toward the far end of the avenue. I followed her gaze. Before long shouts of celebration rose from the street, the new top scholar rode into view. He wore the crimson robe of his new rank. His features were clear and composed, his manner almost unnaturally quiet. The street thundered with cheers, yet he sat his horse as though separated from the noise by a thin veil of mist. Mingshu forgot to drink the tea in her hand. I turned to her. You know him. I saw him in my first life. At last, she spoke the name. Lu Huijin. I waited. She said nothing more. A gust of wind swept through the open window and caught the handkerchief she had laid beside the railing. She reached for it instinctively, too late. The handkerchief fluttered down and landed neatly on the new scholar's shoulder. A wave of good-natured laughter rose from the crowd. Lu Huijin reined in his horse. He lifted the handkerchief from his shoulder and looked up. Mingshu went utterly still. I saw it clearly from beside her. In all the times she had faced Xiao Changgang in her previous life, she had apparently never once been this flustered. Lu Huijin did not call up to her or make a spectacle in the street. He only instructed an attendant to remember the tea house, then continued with the procession. Only when he had disappeared into the crowd did Mingshu slowly sit down again. I asked, "So who is he?" She stared at the rim of her cup. After I died in my first life, no one at court dared criticize Xiao Changgang. He alone spoke openly during court. He said that if an emperor could preserve only appearances with the wife who had shared his youth, while offering her not a shred of true regard, then what right had he to call himself benevolent? What happened to him? He was demoted. Her fingers tightened around the cup. After that, I do not know. I watched her for a moment. Do you want to marry him? Mingshu choked on her tea. I do not. Your face is red. Shen Jiwei. Very well, I shall say no more. She recovered her breath, then muttered, I only think he is a good man, then get to know him first. She blinked. What? Know him first, decide later. I leaned back. He spoke one just sentence for you in another life. That does not mean you owe him yourself in this one. Mingshu looked at me, then she smiled. I understand. 2 days later, Lu Huijin personally visited the Xi residence to return her handkerchief. The elders of the Xia family respected his scholarship and character, and were willing to receive him. Mingshu did not hide. For the first time, she did not take an answer from her previous life and force it upon the present one. She sat down and drank a cup of tea with him. Later, she told me that Lu Huijin never once asked why her handkerchief had fallen onto him, nor did he use the accident as an excuse for flirtation. Before leaving, he asked only one thing. If Lady Xi finds today's visit presumptuous, then Lu Huijin will not trouble this gate again. When Mingshu repeated the words to me, she lowered her head with a small smile. I finally understand why you were so angry with me in the carriage. Why? Because if you truly respect someone, you wait for her to say yes. I said nothing. Spring rain whispered outside the window. It was a light rain. And for the first time, I felt as though the palace gate that had imprisoned Mingshu through an entire lifetime had finally opened by the width of a crack. By early summer, the crown prince's standing at court rose sharply. He had been ordered to oversee river works and grain transport. Within 2 months, reports arrived saying the levee repairs were proceeding smoothly and the transport routes were running better than in previous years. The emperor praised him several times in open court. The earlier whispers about removing the heir soon faded away. One afternoon, Liu Lingyi came to see me and sighed the moment she entered. People are saying it again. If you had married the crown prince, you would be the most glorious woman in the capital now. I was helping mother choose embroidery patterns for my wedding clothes. I did not even look up. Then they may marry him. Lingyi collapsed against the couch laughing. Mingshu did not laugh. She sat near the window, her expression tight. Only after Lingyi left did she speak. In my first life, the river works went wrong at this same time. I put down the embroidery samples. She told me that Xiao Changgang had earned enormous favor from the emperor because of the project. But when autumn came, a southern levee suddenly failed. Not all the silver granted by the court had gone into the embankments. Local officials had skimmed funds layer by layer. Worse, the crown prince had been so eager to finish on schedule that he allowed his subordinates to report progress that had never been completed. When the truth came out, Xiao Changkung shifted the blame onto several local officials and escaped with relatively little damage. "Do you know where the evidence is?" I asked. Mingshu shook her head. "I only remember that the investigators eventually found old timber and irregularities in the sand ledgers. I do not know which stretch of levee or which set of accounts." Oddly enough, I felt relieved. "Then do not accuse anyone yet." She looked at me. "Your first life is your first life. If there is truly wrongdoing in this one, we need proof from this one." Mingshu was silent for a while, then nodded. "Neither of us intended to gamble our family's futures on the words. I remember this from another life. Father was currently assisting the Ministry of Revenue in reviewing old grain transport accounts from Jiangnan. I did not tell him. The crown prince is corrupt. Instead, I wrote down the irregular details Mingshu remembered and asked him where false reporting in a river project would be most likely to reveal itself. Father read my note and raised his eyes. "Who told you this?" I had already prepared an answer. "Some merchants from the south mentioned that timber prices have risen sharply this year, yet the purchase prices reported by the river works are lower than last year. I thought it strange." That was not entirely false. The Shen family had lived in Jiangnan for many years and had many old acquaintances there. Mother had indeed brought several letters from home when she came north, and one mentioned the rising cost of timber. Father did not leap to any conclusion. He merely folded the note and put it away. "I understand." Half a month later, he began returning home later and later. Guyong Shao suddenly became busy as well. A portion of the grain transported by the canal system was meant to supply the Northwestern Army. He discovered that the seals on several grain sacks delivered that year did not match the records. The accounts claimed the full quantity had arrived. The actual stores were short. That was no small discrepancy. Father followed the Ministry of Revenue ledgers downward. Lu Huaijin, now working with the censorate, found several river work memorials whose dates contradicted one another. Mingshu could not involve herself directly in court business, but she wrote down every detail she remembered from the previous life. Where the levee had failed, which official had later been suddenly transferred, who had mysteriously resigned after the scandal. Together, we began stringing scattered beads back onto a single cord. The first person exposed was not the crown prince himself, but one of his officers responsible for purchasing river materials. The man had taken advantage of Xiao Chenggung's hunger for quick merit. He conspired with local officials to inflate timber expenses and substitute inferior materials. Xiao Chengkung may never have taken a single coin, but in his determination to present results before the emperor's birthday, he had suppressed 2 requests for a second inspection. That alone was grave enough. The day Lu Huaijin submitted the evidence, the emperor did not rage in open court. He simply ordered a complete reinvestigation of the river works. When Xiao Chenggung returned to the capital, his expression was grim. For the first time, I saw genuine wariness in the way he looked at Lu Huaijin. More troublesome still, the emperor began summoning Lu Huaijin with increasing frequency. At first, it was because he admired the young man's essays and ability. Then it was because of a jade pendant. The pendant had belonged to Lu Huaijin's mother during one palace visit. He accidentally left it in the imperial study. When the emperor saw it, he stood in silence for a very long time. When the news reached Mingshu, she became utterly still. "It has come." I frowned. "What has?" She looked at me. "His birth." In her previous life, Lu Huaijin had not been acknowledged by the imperial family until much later. When the emperor was young, he had once traveled south in disguise and met a common-born woman. When his true identity was revealed, She refused to enter the palace and left him. No one knew she was already carrying his child. Years later, Lu Huaijin entered government through the civil examinations. His resemblance to the emperor and the old keepsake eventually exposed the truth. In this life, the river scandal had brought him to the emperor's attention much sooner. "You knew all along?" I asked. "Yes. Then why did you not tell him?" Mingshu looked out the window. "Because his birth belongs to him. It is not a piece on my game board." I smiled. She truly was no longer the woman who had sat trembling at the flower banquet. A few days later, the emperor secretly summoned Lu Huaijin to the palace. No one knew what passed between them. What everyone did know was that after leaving the palace, Lu Huaijin went to the Xi residence to withdraw from a marriage. Yes, his own newly arranged marriage to Xi Mingshu. Mingshu came to see me that night with eyes so red I nearly thought I had mistaken her for someone else. "He does not want you. That is not it." She drew a breath. "He said that once his birth becomes public, the succession will be thrown into turmoil. He does not know where the court may push him. He refuses to drag me into it without giving me the chance to understand what I am entering." After hearing that, I was less worried, not more. "What did you say?" Mingshu fell silent. I waited. At last she muttered, "I took back the marriage document. And then? I pushed it back into his hands." I stared. The tips of her ears slowly turned red. "I told him that if he does not love me, he may end the match. But if he is only afraid of involving me, then whether I am afraid should be mine to decide." I could not help laughing. Mingshu glared at me. "You are laughing at me. I am pleased." "About what?" "You have finally learned not to make other people's choices for them, and not to let them make yours." She stared at me for a moment. Then she laughed too. Lu Huaijin's identity was eventually made public. The emperor did not immediately change the heir. He simply acknowledged Lu Huaijin as an imperial son, granted him the title Prince Jing, and ordered him to continue serving at court. That only made Xiao Chenggong more uneasy. Until then, he had been the only grown imperial son in direct line for succession. Now a capable younger brother had appeared, one who had earned a clean reputation through the river investigation. The mood at court naturally shifted. The crown prince struck back. His first target was Gu Yongxiao. A memorial accused him of withholding military equipment in the northwest. Another charged that he had used battlefield merit to demand a marriage, twisting imperial favor for private gain. The day after the accusations reached the throne, Gu Yongxiao was temporarily suspended and ordered to submit to inquiry. When I went to see him, he was calmer than I was. "Stop frowning. You have been suspended from office. Am I not even allowed to frown?" "You are." He lifted a hand as though to touch my forehead, then remembered propriety and stopped. "I only dislike seeing you worry." I had no patience for his teasing. "What happened with the armory records?" "They are false." He told me the dates he had already checked. The forged evidence was not badly made, but whoever created it had made one small mistake. One batch of the supposedly withheld weapons was recorded as having reached the northwest in the third lunar month. That mountain road was still sealed by snow in the third month. It had not opened until the middle of the fourth. "Summoning is getting desperate," Gu Yongxiao said. I nodded. This time, I did not simply wait for father and Yunxiao to investigate. I returned home and searched through years of letters exchanged between the Shen and Gu families. Every early spring, Gu's elders complained in their letters about the roads being blocked at the frontier. Some years, even tea could not get through. One letter happened to state that on the 17th day of the fourth month, the first merchant caravan from the south had finally reached the border city. A family letter could not prove an armory case by itself, but it gave father a clear direction. He petitioned for permission to inspect the old relay station registers. Soon, the opening date of the mountain pass was confirmed. The weapons that had supposedly arrived in the third month could never have existed. Gu Yongxiao was cleared. Better still, the false paperwork led investigators directly to an official attached to the Crown Prince's household. For the first time, Xiao Chenggung was publicly rebuked by the emperor in open court. That evening, Mingshu came to see me. None of this happened in my first life. I understood what she meant. Fate had wandered farther and farther from the road she remembered. That should have frightened her. Instead, after speaking, she slowly smiled. Good. What is good about it? From now on, I cannot predict everything either. She looked up at the night sky. At last, I am no longer repeating my first life. When autumn came, the emperor fell ill. It was not a grave illness, but it was enough to quiet the entire court. The crown prince had assisted in government for years. Under ordinary circumstances, he would have been the obvious choice to shoulder imperial affairs. But after the river scandal and the forged armory accusations, the emperor did not hand all authority to the Eastern Palace. Instead, several senior ministers were ordered to manage affairs jointly with Prince Jing, Lu Huaijin. The arrangement was a drop of oil cast into a hot pan. No one said it aloud. Everyone understood. For the first time, the succession had truly begun to shake. The day Xiao Chenggung came to the Shen residence, I was checking the guest list for my wedding. When the gatekeeper announced him, I thought I had misheard. Father was not at home. Mother did not want me to receive him. But a crown prince could not simply be left standing in the front hall indefinitely. So I went with 2 maids beside me. Xiao Chenggang stood near the window. I had not seen him for several months. He had grown thinner. His features were still composed and handsome, but the effortless confidence he once carried had faded. Does your highness require something? His eyes moved to the maids behind me. We would speak with you alone. They will remain. He was silent for a moment. The Xiao Chenggung of a few months earlier would have taken offense. Tode, he did not insist. Jiwei, we will ask you one final time. I said nothing. If Gu Yingxiao did not exist, would you choose us? For a moment, I did not know how to answer. Not because the question was difficult, because it was meaningless. There is no such if. We want an answer. Then no. The color slowly left his face. Why? For once he did not sound like a crown prince. He sounded like a man who truly could not understand. I thought for a long while before answering. Because your highness has always believed that loving someone means deciding what is best for her. He frowned. We can give you honor. We can protect the Shen family. We can ensure you never suffer indignity in this life. But I never asked your highness for any of those things. He froze. I continued. I told you I was promised to another man and you decided the promise could be dissolved. I returned your gifts, and you decided I feared the Shi family. I refused you, and you decided Gu Yingxiao was standing in your way. Your highness has never considered that perhaps when I say no, I simply mean no. The front hall went still. Xiao Chenggang said nothing for a long time. I thought perhaps he had finally heard me. Then he asked, and if we were not the crown prince? I looked at him. For the first time, something close to obsessive vulnerability showed in his eyes. If we possess nothing at all, would you be even less willing to look at us? And suddenly, I understood. It was never truly about me, or at least, not entirely. What he could not bear was that someone knew exactly who he was, and still chose not to want him. I did not explain further. Your Highness, my wedding date has been set. Please do not come again. He stood there for a very long time. When he finally turned away, his shoulders were rigid. That was the last time I spoke with him alone before the palace crisis. A few days later, the emperor's illness abruptly worsened. Word spread from the palace that His Majesty's fever would not break. At the same time, the capital garrison began changing its posts. Gu Yingxiao noticed something was wrong. By custom, a capital garrison transfer required 2 separate written orders, one from the Ministry of War and one from the Central Secretariat. This time, one of the seals was blurred, as though stamped in haste. Lu Huaijin went to the palace to inquire, but the empress blocked his entry on the grounds that the emperor needed rest. Mingshu knew immediately that something had changed. In her previous life, Xiao Chenghang had not acted at this time. In this life, however, He had already been driven onto a different road. On the day of the Empress's birthday banquet, the titled ladies and noble daughters of the capital entered the palace as custom required. I had wanted to claim illness and stay home. Father refused. The more uncertain the hour, the less the Shen family can afford to look as though we knew something beforehand. So I entered the palace as usual. Before I left, Gu Yingxiao gave me only one warning. If the palace gates do not open when they should, do not wander. Stay where people can see you. I nodded. Mingshu arrived almost at the same time I did. She was unusually quiet that day. The banquet had been underway for less than half an hour when the palace gates closed. 3 bells rang outside. They were not banquet bells. Unease spread through the hall. Even the Empress's face changed. Soon, an official from the Eastern Palace entered and announced in a loud voice, "His Majesty is gravely ill. By imperial command, the Crown Prince will temporarily assume control of the palace gates. Honored ladies, remain calm and stay within the hall." Mingshu and I exchanged a look. By imperial command. Yet no one had seen the decree. Another quarter hour passed before Xiao Chenggung finally appeared. He wore formal princely court robes and a sword at his waist, but the old composure was gone. The Empress lowered her voice. "Chenggung, what are you doing?" He answered only, "Mother, your son is preserving the Xiao dynasty." The entire hall fell silent. The last of my hope vanished. He had truly made his move. Xiao Chenggung's gaze passed over the gathered crowd and settled on Mingshu and me. "You are both here." Mingshu stood straight. I did not step back either. He came closer. "Mingshu, in your first life, was becoming empress not the thing you wanted most." Her face changed at once. My heart sank. He remembered. Or perhaps, under the weight of everything that had happened, memories from that other life had awakened in him as well. Xiao Chenggung smiled, and the smile looked exhausted. "So it was not a dream. You came back too." Mingshu's hands trembled faintly inside her sleeves. I moved one step nearer to her. Xiao Chenggung seemed not to notice. "In the last life, did you not spend years waiting for us to turn back toward you? This time, we will give you that chance." Mingshu looked at him. Then she laughed. There was no joy in it, only disbelief at the absurdity of his words. "Your Highness still does not understand." "Understand what? What I wanted most in my first life was never the Empress's throne." She paused. "I wanted you to see me." Then her voice steadied. "But now, I no longer need that." Xiao Chengheng's expression darkened. He turned to me, Wei. Only one thought crossed my mind. "Do not say my name as though we are close. If we ascend today, you may still be our empress." Summoning in the hall gasped. I heard the Empress strike the table. "Chenggung!" But Xiao Chenggung was no longer listening to anyone. It was as though he had finally placed the greatest prize he could imagine before me, and was waiting for regret to soften my face, waiting for me to turn back. I did not. "Your Highness?" His eyes narrowed. "What do you wish to say?" "His Majesty is still alive in his chambers," I said evenly. "It is rather early to speak of your ascension." His gaze went cold. My heart was pounding too. Of course I was afraid. The corridors outside were full of men loyal to the Eastern Palace. I had no idea whether Gu Yingxiao and Lu Huaijin would be able to enter the palace at all. But the more dangerous the moment became, the less we could afford to lose our heads. Mingshu suddenly raised her voice. "Your Highness claims to hold the palace by imperial command. Where is the decree?" Every head turned toward her. Xiao Chenggong answered coldly, "Father is gravely ill. An oral command is sufficient." Who carried this oral command? The palace eunuch Chen Hai. Mingshu smiled faintly. "Then that is curious. Half an hour ago, eunuch Chen was still outside His Majesty's bedchamber." Xiao Chengkung's face changed. Mingshu continued, "Before I entered the palace, Prince Jing had already required both the Imperial Medical Bureau and the Directorate of Palace Attendants to record His Majesty's condition independently. His Majesty has had a high fever today. but he has remained conscious. He issued no command granting the crown prince control of the palace gates. The hall erupted in whispers. So Lu Huaijin had prepared for this. Xiao Chengyang turned sharply. At that moment, a heavy sound came from beyond the hall. Not the crash of someone breaking down a door. The palace gates were being opened from within by the guards themselves. When Gu Yongxiao entered with the imperial guards, I finally realized my palms were drenched with sweat. His first glance went straight to me. Only after confirming that I was standing unharmed did the tension visibly leave his face. Lu Huaijin entered behind him. He carried a genuine imperial decree. The emperor was awake, and the forged order used by the Eastern Palace to move the capital garrison had been intercepted. Xiao Chenggang stood in the center of the great hall, his face gray. There was no vast clash of arms. The commanders who had followed the Eastern Palace saw the imperial decree and the authentic tiger tally in the hands of the guards. They quickly laid down their weapons. The attempted seizure of the palace had failed before it ever truly gathered force. When Xiao Changgang was finally escorted away, he stopped beside Shi Mingshu. "Do you truly not hate us at all anymore?" Mingshu looked at him. "I did." "And now?" She reached into her sleeve and withdrew an old jade pendant. I recognized it. Xiao Chengkang had given it to her in her first life. It was the only relic of that life she had not thrown away after returning. She did not smash it. She did not grind it beneath her heel. She simply placed it on a nearby table. Then she stepped back. "Your Highness." Her voice was calm. "In this life, this is where it ends." Xiao Chengkang stared at the pendant as though the last strength had left him. The guards escorted him from the hall. The doors closed again. Mingshu remained where she was for a long time. Her fingertips were cold. After a moment, she turned her hand and gripped mine in return. "Jiewei, so something really can end." I did not answer. I only held her hand a little tighter. For an entire month after the failed palace seizure, the capital was unnaturally quiet. Xiao Chenggang was stripped of the title of crown prince and confined to a detached imperial residence. The empress, accepting responsibility for failing to restrain the Eastern Palace, requested leave to retire to a country palace and devote herself to Buddhist practice. The emperor did not appoint a new heir at once. After recovering, he first purged the former crown prince's faction, then reopened the investigations into the river works and the forged military records. Those who had broken the law were judged. Damaged levees were repaired. Misused silver was recovered wherever possible. Father was so busy he scarcely seemed to touch the ground. Gu Yongxiao was restored to military office as well. I thought the story had ended there. Mingshu said her life was only beginning. Her marriage to Lu Huaijin was not cancelled because of the palace crisis. Quite the opposite. Aunt's order had been restored. The first thing Lu Huaijin did was visit the Xia residence in person. He did not bring an imperial decree. He brought the marriage document they had once agreed upon. Mingshu later told me that he asked only one question. "Do you still choose this?" She said yes. That was all. Half a year later, the emperor named Lu Huaijin crown prince. Not merely because he was a son unexpectedly restored to the imperial family. During those 6 months, Lu Huaijin had helped reform the river works, clean up the grain transport system, and steady the court throughout the emperor's illness. By then, even his opponents had little ground left to object. When Mingshu heard the decree, she was calmer than anyone. The position she had once spent a lifetime chasing had now come walking back toward her. But this time, she was not standing there for the phoenix throne. She even told Lu Huaijin that if he ever began to treat her as a fine ornament to be displayed at his side, she would leave of her own accord. Lu Huaijin was silent for a very long time. Then he said, "In that case, I shall remind myself every day not to give you the opportunity." When Mingshu repeated the words to me, her ears were scarlet. I laughed at her for the length of an entire cup of tea. As for me, my wedding date was finally fixed. After Mother arrived in the capital, She spent every day preparing my bridal gifts and trousseau. The Gu family was even worse. Madame Gu sent so many things that half a room vanished beneath the boxes. Yet she still declared it insufficient. Gu Yongxiao found an excuse to visit the Shen residence every other day. One day he brought a newly acquired bow. The next time, a piece of jade from the frontier. Once, when he had apparently run out of suitable offerings, he arrived carrying a basket of peaches. I stared at them. Where did you buy these? East Market. Peaches are not even ripe yet. That is why they were expensive. I nearly threw one at him. The day before my wedding, Mingshu came to add her gifts to my bridal trousseau. She sat behind me at the bronze mirror and helped arrange my hair. Her reflection looked healthy and bright. Her brows were relaxed. None of the brittle pallor from the flower banquet remained. A thought suddenly occurred to me. What happened to me in your first life? Her hand paused. You truly want to know? A little. She smiled. You married Gu Yongxiao then too. I turned in surprise. But Xiao Chenggong spent years looking for me. Did he not? He did. He did not interfere. He tried. Mingshu met my eyes in the mirror. That was why Gu Yongxiao later volunteered for a permanent posting at the frontier. And you went with him. Everyone in the capital assumed he had been pushed aside and sent away in disgrace. Only much later did I understand that the frontier was probably where the two of you had chosen to go. I was quiet. A breeze moved outside the window. The peach tree in the courtyard stirred gently. You lived well there, Mingshu continued. At least every report I ever heard said so. Gu Yongxiao earned many military honors. You opened schools for women and helped soldiers' families learn to read, keep accounts, and manage their households. You rarely returned to the capital. I stared at her. So even in my first life, I did not choose him. There was something soft in Mingshu's smile. You see, Zhiwei, some choices do not require dying once before a person can make them correctly. I lowered my head and smiled. In that first life, I had known nothing about what Xiao Chenggong would become. I had known nothing about what Mingshu would suffer. And still, I had chosen the road I wanted. There was comfort in that. The auspicious hour approached. Someone outside called for us to hurry. Mingshu placed the final hairpin into my hair. Just before I left the room, she handed me a small brocade box. I opened it. Inside lay a peony carved from jade. He looked up at her. You are giving me another peony? She fought a smile. Do not worry, this one does not come with a crown prince. I laughed too. Then I can accept it. Red silk ran from the corridor all the way to the outer gate. Gu Yongxiao was already waiting outside. He wore brilliant wedding red. This was a man who could ride into battle without blinking. Yet when he looked at me through the veil, he seemed so nervous he no longer knew what to do with his hands. Mingshu placed my hand in his. General Gu. He straightened at once. Your Highness, Crown Princess. If she suffers grievance in your household, I shall come settle the account with you. She will not. Mingshu arched a brow. You answered very quickly. I would sooner take the grievance myself. I lightly kicked him through the hem of my wedding robes. It is our wedding day. Stop inviting ill fortune with foolish words. Laughter rose around us. He laughed too. Then he took my hand with extraordinary care. His palm was burning warm. When the bridal sedan left the Shen residence, peach blossoms were opening along the street. A gust of wind sent petals tumbling across the road. I suddenly remembered the Yao Huang. That day, it had rolled from Shi Mingshu's foot to mine. I had hidden it in my sleeve and finally thrown it into the spring river. Everyone had thought it represented a marriage any woman should fight to possess. But a flower is only a flower. People had piled rank, wealth, destiny, and desire upon its petals until it weighed like a stone. Looking back, I was glad it floated away. I had never loved peonies very much. I still preferred peach blossoms. Livelier, freer. They bloom when the wind comes and fall when the wind moves on. They need not prove anyone's glory. They need not decide anyone's marriage. Outside the sedan, Gu Yongxiao lowered his voice. Zhou, what are you smiling about? I answered through the curtain. Nothing, truly. Truly. He clearly did not believe me, but he did not press. Drums and wedding gongs carried us onward. I lifted one corner of the curtain. The spring light was clear and warm. At the end of the long street, peach blossoms crowded the branches in full bloom. This time, no one had chosen my road for me, and I had chosen no one else's road for them. Each of us was walking toward the place we had decided, for ourselves, to go. My friends, let us talk about the absolute arrogance of rewriting someone else's fate. In her desperation to escape a gilded hell, a woman tried to pass the snare to an unsuspecting stranger, convinced she was fixing a cosmic mistake. She thought she was correcting destiny. She did not realize that treating another person's life as a convenient puzzle piece to solve your own tragedy is just another form of cruelty. But the true brilliance of this tale belongs to the stranger. When the ultimate prize was kicked to her feet, she did not grovel in blind gratitude. She looked at the desperate eyes of the giver, recognized the invisible hook, and quietly threw the blessing away. She understood a fundamental truth that most spend lifetimes failing to grasp. A cage is still a cage, no matter how many people are fighting to lock themselves inside it. The rejected royal could not comprehend it. He believed that supreme rank was irresistible, completely unable to fathom that a woman could see exactly who he was, and simply decide she did not want him. He confused control with love, and in his obsessive need to possess a woman who did not want him, he destroyed himself. This is the quietest, most beautiful victory. True freedom is not possessing the highest throne, nor is it forcing the world to perfectly fit the memories of your past life. True freedom is looking at a glittering destiny someone else has chosen for you, politely stepping aside and walking your own road. Vera's pole, the stolen peony. Secretly kicking a symbol of royal marriage to a stranger to escape a tragic fate. A desperate act of self-preservation, or an arrogant manipulation of another's life. The river's secret, hiding the ultimate prize in a sleeve only to casually drown it in a fast-moving current. A masterful stroke of self-defense, or a dangerous gamble against imperial wrath? The returned treasures, sending back chests of priceless royal gifts to prove a rejection is absolute foolish stubbornness, or the only way to make a deaf man listen. The unbroken betrothal, choosing a weary frontier general over the glittering eastern palace. A humble retreat, or the truest form of self-respect. Tell me, my friends, if someone desperately tried to hand you the most coveted blessing in the realm, would you eagerly take the prize? Or would you recognize the invisible hook, smile, and drop it into the water? Until next time.